I was just wiping my hands on the kitchen towel, the sun hitting the sink just right. My son, looking sharp in his suit, put a thick envelope on the table. "Don't be mad." "Mom," he started, his voice too smooth. And then he told me that, legally, this house wasn't mine anymore. My name is Margaret Doyle, but most folks in Hawthorne Ridge just call me Maggie. I am 63 years old, a widow, and I live alone in this 2-story house in Ohio. I have lived here for more than 32 years. My mornings are quiet, and I like them that way. This one started just like all the others. The black coffee was scalding hot. The little radio on the counter was humming a classical station, and the 7 a.m. sun was cutting across the porcelain sink, making the water droplets shine. The sound of tires on my gravel driveway broke the quiet. I looked up from the newspaper, surprised. It was a Wednesday. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was Ethan, my only son. His new SUV, a massive, gleaming black thing that always looked out of place on our quiet street, pulled right up to the porch. He stepped out, already in a full suit, looking sharp and hurried. Ethan is 38, and he always looks like he stepped out of a magazine in Columbus. He walked right in the back door, carrying a thick manila envelope that had the official seal of the county clerk's office on it. "Ethan, honey, what brings you out so early?" I said, standing up. I was wiping my hands on the faded yellow dish towel I keep by the sink. He didn't hug me. He walked right past me to the kitchen table, the one my husband Patrick and I bought at an auction decades ago. He placed the envelope squarely in the middle, right on top of the grocery list I was making. "Don't be mad. Mom," he said. His voice had that smooth, careful tone he uses for business, not for family. A cold little knot formed in my stomach. Mad about what? He gave me that tight, practiced smile. "It's just paperwork. About the house. Legally speaking, you're not the owner anymore." The towel slipped from my hand. I just stared at him. The radio announcer was talking about a cold front, but the sound seemed very far away. "What did you say?" "Just look," he said, tapping the envelope. My hands were shaking. I ripped the seal and pulled out a stack of papers. They were heavy, official, deeds, transfer forms. I scanned the lines, my eyes struggling to focus on the legal jargon. And then I saw it. The owner of my home, this house, was listed as Doyle Legacy Holdings, LLC. I looked up, confused. "What is Doyle Legacy Holdings? I don't understand." "It's just a company, Mom. A limited liability company," Ethan said, waving his hand dismissively. "It's just an estate planning tool for the family's future. It's smarter this way." He leaned against the counter, suddenly very casual. "I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I had my people help you move the ownership into the company. It's for asset protection, to avoid inheritance taxes down the line." He paused, then took a breath. "And the market in Hawthorne Ridge is peaking. I'm going to be selling it. I need the capital for the down payment on a new place, something bigger for me and Brooke near the headquarters in Columbus." Sell it. He was going to sell my house. Before I could even form a word, he was reaching into his expensive leather briefcase and pulling out a glossy brochure. He slid it across the table toward me. The cover showed smiling, silver-haired people playing bocce ball. "I already found the perfect place for you to go. Temporarily." "Of course," he said, his voice turning gentle, like he was calming a nervous animal. It's an independent senior living community. It's state-of-the-art. They have yoga, an indoor pool, social events, and even a nurse on call 24/7. You won't have to worry about a thing. I wasn't listening. My eyes were glued to the document in my hand, the one he had brought. I'd found another line, printed in bold, unmistakable type near the bottom. Notice of transfer and occupancy termination. It was a formal notice, telling me, the current resident, that my right to live here was being terminated. I had 45 days to vacate. And there, at the bottom, was the signature. An electronic signature, clean and cold, Ethan Doyle, managing member. My head was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table. When my voice came out as a dry rasp. When did I do this? Mom, you signed the papers, he said, his tone shifting to one of mild exasperation, as if I were a forgetful child. Don't you remember last year, when you got home from the hospital after your knee surgery? I brought all the paperwork over. The memory surfaced through a fog. The painkillers, the exhaustion. Ethan, being so helpful, sitting on the edge of my bed with a stack of papers. I told you it was just some new bank papers and the durable power of attorney forms, he said, so I could help manage your finances while you healed. I explained it all then. He had explained nothing. He had just pointed, and I had signed, grateful that my successful son was taking care of his old mother. He checked his watch. I've got to get back for a 9 o'clock meeting. He stood up, walked over, and patted me on the shoulder. It felt heavy, proprietary. Don't you worry about a thing, Mum. Just pack the essentials. We'll handle all the details. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched him walk out the door. Through the kitchen window, I saw his black SUV sitting in my driveway. It looked big and dark and powerful, like a silent predator that had just claimed its territory. And I realized, in that moment, that it was. I did not sleep that night. I could not. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 2 a.m. and then 3 a.m., and I was still walking. I paced the rooms, my hand brushing the textured wallpaper Patrick and I had argued over, and then hung ourselves. I touched the worn arm of his favourite chair. 32 years. We moved into this house 32 years ago, with a mortgage that scared us half to death, a rusty sedan that barely ran, and 2 empty hands. This house was the only thing of value we had ever truly built together. My mind was frantic, searching for an explanation, a mistake. I went to the old roll-top desk in the study, the one that had been Patrick's. I pulled open the sticky bottom drawer, rummaging past old tax returns and dried-up pens, looking for the original deed. I needed to feel the paper, to see my name and Patrick's name. But it was gone. All I found were thin, brittle bank envelopes with the logo of a bank that had closed 15 years ago, and a thick, glossy folder labelled estate planning. It was the one Ethan had brought over the week after Patrick's funeral. I remembered him setting it on the table, his voice low and sympathetic, while I was still walking in a fog, barely able to make coffee, let alone understand legal terms. The memory hit me so hard I had to sit down. Ethan had been so kind that day. He said he had hired a professional firm from the city, Dawson and Heller LLP, to help me, to avoid probate, he'd said, to protect you from any legal trouble. I remembered sitting on this very sofa, the prescription sedatives the doctor had given me making the world feel fuzzy and distant. Ethan had spread the papers out, guiding my hand. It's just a durable power of attorney. Mum, it just lets me help pay your bills and talk to the bank for you while you're grieving. My hands were trembling now, but not from age. I pulled those exact papers from the folder. I flipped past the legal jargon to the last page. My signature. It was weak, slightly shaky, but undeniably mine. I read the paragraph above it. A durable power of attorney. It granted Ethan full, comprehensive financial authority, the power to buy, to sell, to transfer, to manage all assets in my name. I had trusted him. I had trusted my son completely, and I had never understood the power of what I was signing. I felt a hot, acidic surge of adrenaline. I went to the old laptop on the corner of the desk, the one I only used for email and recipes. It whirred loudly as it booted up. I typed Hawthorne County Property Search into the browser. My fingers fumbled the password for the public portal twice. The third time, it let me in. I typed in my own address. The screen loaded, and there it was. A transfer of ownership, filed 11 months ago, from Margaret Doyle, surviving owner, to Doyle Legacy Holdings, LLC. The transfer fee was $0, listed as exempt under the family transfer provision. 11 months ago. The exact week I had come home from the hospital after my knee replacement. A second punch landed. I clicked on the tax information tab. The property taxes, which had been automatically paid from my checking account for 20 years, had stopped. The last 3 quarterly payments had been made from a new corporate account, and the contact information listed for tax billing, the name and email address for all official county correspondence, was no longer mine. It was Ethan's. The shock, the deep, agonizing pain of his betrayal, suddenly burned away. It left behind something else, something cold and sharp. This was not an oversight. This was not an over-eager son helping his aging mother. This was a plan, a patient, methodical plan, executed at the 2 moments in my life when I was at my absolute weakest, when I was grieving my husband, and when I was recovering from major surgery. I had been insulted, deeply and fundamentally. I got up and walked to the cedar chest in the hallway. I opened the lid, the smell of cedar and old memories rising up. I dug beneath my wedding veil and Ethan's baby blanket until I found the small, carved wooden box where Patrick kept important, or just sentimental, papers. Inside, under his honourable discharge papers, was a single sheet of yellow legal paper, folded in fourths. It was his handwriting, strong and black. It was a note he'd scribbled years ago, when we were first drafting our wills. He had written, "If I kick the bucket tomorrow, you sell this place if you want to. Maggie. But if anyone ever tries to touch this nest of yours, I swear I'll come back and haunt them." A sound escaped my throat, a dry, broken laugh. I sat down in the dark living room, the single floor lamp casting a pale yellow circle on the floor. It illuminated the nepnun on my hands as I held his note. I whispered to the empty room, to the ghost of my husband. I let someone touch it. Patrick. I let him touch our home. I stared at my reflection in the dark window, a tired old woman in a house that no longer belonged to her. But not in the way they think they have. A small, cold, and terribly sharp resolve began to form in the center of my chest. The next morning, I walked into the Hawthorne Town Library for my Thursday book club meeting. It felt like walking in a dream. How was I supposed to discuss historical fiction when my own reality was crumbling? But the thought of sitting alone in that house, counting down the 45 days, was worse. My friends were there. We were halfway through our lukewarm coffee when Lorraine Harris, who has lived 2 streets over for 30 years, set her book down. "Maggie, you look like you've seen a ghost. What on earth is wrong?" Lorraine is 67, sharp as a tack, and spent her entire career as a paralegal for a big law firm in Columbus before retiring. I looked at the familiar, kind faces around the table, and the dam just broke. I told them, my voice barely a whisper, trying not to cry in the public library. "It's Ethan," I said. He had me sign papers. He put my house into a company, and he's selling it." The table erupted in gasps. "Oh, Maggie, a misunderstanding. Surely," one said. "He must not realize what he's doing," said another. Lorraine was silent. She just watched me, her expression unreadable. When the murmuring died down, she leaned in. "Maggie," she said, her voice low and firm. "That is not an estate plan. That is a theft, plain and simple." The word hung in the air, ugly and true. After the meeting, as everyone else packed up, Lorraine pulled me aside. She dug into her oversized purse and pulled out a simple, cream-colored business card. She pressed it into my hand. It read, "The Hawthorne Center for Elder Justice." "They're a non-profit," Lorraine said, closing my fingers over the card. "They help seniors who are being financially manipulated. By family, by strangers. It doesn't matter. You call them." "Oh, I don't know. Lorraine," I stammered, embarrassed. It's not like that. I'm not that important." She gripped my arm, her strength surprising me. "You are exactly who they help. You call them. Today. Do not wait." I called from my car in the library parking lot. My voice cracked when I tried to explain my situation to the receptionist. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, I was sitting in a small, clean office in a brick building I had driven past 1,000 times and never noticed. Simone Alvarez was not what I expected. She was about 55, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. But her eyes were warm. She was Mexican-American, and she spoke with a measured, precise cadence that was both comforting and intimidating. She slid a box of tissues across the desk toward me before I even started. I told her everything. The knee surgery, the fog of painkillers, Ethan's kind words about helping me, the glossy brochure for the senior living center, the 45-day notice. She listened without interrupting. She just nodded, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she looked at the stack of papers I had printed from the county website. "Let's look at the documents," she said. She reviewed the durable power of attorney, her eyes scanning the dense text. She pulled up the transfer deed on her own computer. "Well," she said, leaning back. "From a purely legal standpoint, the transfer is clean. He used a valid POA, signed by you, to transfer the asset into an LLC which he manages." My stomach dropped. "So, that's it, I have to leave." "I did not say that," Simone said, holding up a hand. "I said the paperwork is clean. The circumstances are filthy. This has all the classic markers of undue influence. You were in a vulnerable state, medically compromised, recovering from surgery, and you trusted your son. He had a fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. This," she tapped the notice of occupancy termination, "is not in your best interest." She was quiet for a moment, her fingers flying across her keyboard, accessing records I didn't know existed. He filed the LLC 11 months ago, she murmured. He filed the transfer deed. Ah, here we go. Wait a minute. She turned the large monitor on her desk so I could see it. What am I looking at? I asked. The county's registry of deeds and mortgages, she said. She pointed to a line item dated 2 months before he transferred the house to the LLC. Did you refinance your home last year? Maggie. What, no? Patrick and I paid the mortgage off 9 years ago. Someone did, Simone said, her voice turning hard. There is a new loan against your property, a home equity line of credit. It was taken out, in your name, 2 months before the LLC was created. And then, she clicked again, the house and this new, very large debt were both transferred to Doyle Legacy Holdings, LLC. The room tilted. He didn't just transfer the house. Maggie, Simone said, turning to face me, her eyes full of a grim understanding. He used your house as collateral. He borrowed a massive amount of money against it for his own purposes. He didn't just steal your future home. He cashed out your past. She leaned forward. I suspect your son is in very deep financial trouble. And this house, this was his last cash cow. Simone's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. I need your permission to do a full investigation. I need to pull your bank records, request the loan application documents from that bank, and check the county court for any other debts or lawsuits in his name. We also need to run your credit report, immediately, to see what else he might have done. She paused, letting the weight of it land. You need to prepare yourself, Maggie. We are going to find things, and you are not going to like them. I walked out of the Hawthorne Centre for Elder Justice into the cold winter afternoon. The wind cut through my thin coat, but I barely felt it. I stood in that grey, cracked parking lot, the sky the colour of slate. For the first time in 36 hours, my hands weren't shaking. I wasn't a victim running from a deadline. I was a woman who had just been handed a map. I was planting my heels, and I was getting ready for the fight. With Simone's guidance, I walked into the Hawthorne First National Bank the next day. It was the same bank Patrick and I had used since we moved here. Sharon, a teller who had known me for 20 years, gave me a strained smile. Mrs. Doyle, good to see you. Just a deposit today. No, Sharon? I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I need to speak with a manager. I need a complete list of every account, checking and savings, that has my name on it, and I need the full statements for the past 3 years. Her smile faltered. Oh, of course. Is everything all right? I'm just updating my files, I said. Minutes later, I was sitting in a small, beige consulting room with the branch manager, a young man who looked nervous. He had a stack of printouts. He explained my checking account, which I knew. Then he cleared his throat. And it appears you are also a joint owner on a high-yield savings account. Account number ending in 415, he said, reading from his screen. This one was opened. 3 years ago. The other owner is Ethan Doyle. May I see the statements for that account, please? I asked. He printed them. I spread the thin sheets of paper on the small table. The first deposit, made 3 years ago, just after Patrick's death, was for $82,450. It was Patrick's life insurance. The money I thought was my safety net. The money I told Ethan to just put somewhere safe for me. I traced the line with my finger. The next entry was a month later. A transfer. To Doyle Consulting Group. It read. The memo line said, reimbursement, $5,000. The next month, another reimbursement, $7,000. Then $3,000. Then 10. Month after month. For 2 solid years. My son had been reimbursing himself from my inheritance. I turned to the last page. The current balance. $412.06. He had drained it. He had systematically, quietly, bled my entire retirement fund dry. I took the papers, thanked the manager, and walked straight to Simone's office. I didn't cry. I was too cold for that. I simply placed the statements on her desk. He took the insurance money. Too, I said. Simone looked at the pages, her expression hardening. Doyle Consulting Group, she said. Another LLC? Another shell? She was already on her computer. While you were at the bank? I was in the public records? She turned her screen to me. Our Mr. Doyle is a busy man. He has 2 active credit card default lawsuits against him. He has a judgment from an online lender for an unsecured loan. And, most interesting, he has a $60,000 lien against him from a private investor, filed just last month. My successful son, my brilliant businessman. He's drowning, Simone said, and he's been using you as a life raft. That evening, I was sitting on my porch when my neighbor's son, Caleb, walked by. He's 17. A good kid, always glued to his phone or his laptop. He's the one who helps me set up my smart TV when the settings get confusing. Caleb? Honey? I called out. I have a strange favor to ask you. I need you to find something on the internet for me. He sat on the porch step. Sure. Mrs. Doyle? What's up? My son, I said, choosing my words carefully, has a new company. He's in finance. It's called Brightstone Metrics. He's so proud of it. And I can't seem to find his website. Could you look? It took Caleb about 30 seconds. Here it is, he said, turning his laptop toward me. The website was awful. It was just 1 page, full of stock photos of skyscrapers and meaningless buzzwords like synergistic data analysis and fintech solutions. He talks about it a lot, I said. How he's raising money. Series A. He calls it. Huh, Caleb said, his fingers flying across the keys. He clicked on LinkedIn. He found cheap-looking press releases on websites I'd never heard of, all praising Ethan Doyle as a visionary founder in the tech space. Then Caleb's expression changed. This is weird, he said. He was on some kind of anonymous forum for local investors. He showed me a post from 2 weeks ago. The anonymous user wrote, Warning to anyone in the Columbus area, stay away from Brightstone Metrics. The founder is using new investor money to pay off old investors. It's a soft Ponzi scheme, and the whole thing is about to collapse. I felt the last piece of the puzzle click into place. I called Simone later that night and told her what Caleb had found. That's it, she said. That's the motive. He drained your savings. He maxed out his credit. He took that $60,000 loan and couldn't pay it back. So he used your house, with your signature on the POA, as collateral for a massive new loan. He funneled that money into his company to pay off the angry investors. But it wasn't not enough. Now the bank loan is due. The new investors are screaming. And he has only one move left, sell the house out from under you to cover his tracks before he's arrested. The anger that had been simmering inside me for days finally crystallized. It was no longer the hot, painful grief of a betrayed mother. It was something different. It was cold. clear and hard as granite. He hadn't just stolen from me. He had used me, my name, my grief, and Patrick's memory to build a house of cards. He was worried about his reputation, his image as a successful, clean-cut entrepreneur. I didn't just want my house back. I wanted to pull the bottom card out and watch the whole thing come down. So, what's our move? I asked Simone, my voice perfectly level. There was a long pause on the line. Our move, Simone said, is war. We file a civil suit for elder financial abuse, fraudulent conveyance, and undue influence. We ask the judge for an emergency injunction to stop the sale, and at the same time, I take this entire file to the district attorney's office. We request a criminal investigation. She took a breath. I have to warn you, Maggie. This will be public. It will be long. And it will be very, very ugly. You have to be absolutely certain you are prepared to burn this bridge with your son. Because after this, there is no going back. Before I called Simone and told her to file the lawsuit, I felt I had to do one last thing. As a mother, I had to look my son in the eye and give him a final chance to tell the truth. So when his wife, Brooke, called with her usual Sunday invitation for dinner, I said yes. I drove the 45 minutes to their neighborhood in the Columbus suburbs. It was one of those new developments where every house was a variation of the same beige or grey, with perfect, manicured lawns and identical 3-car garages. It was the very picture of clean, successful, middle-class American life. Dinner was a performance. My grandchildren, Thomas, who is 11, and Lily, who is 8, chattered about a field trip and a lost tooth. They were bright and loud and blissfully unaware of the abyss that was opening up beneath their family. I tried to push the bland, overcooked chicken around on my plate, smiling when Lily told her story. Ethan was wound tight, watching me, barely speaking. Brooke just seemed exhausted. As soon as the kids were excused, Brooke shooed them upstairs for homework. Get your bath. Lily, I heard her say. The moment her footsteps faded on the carpeted stairs, the silence in the dining room became heavy and cold. This was it. I reached into the large handbag at my feet. I pulled out the stack of bank statements from the high-yield savings account. I pulled out the printouts from the county website, showing the loan. I laid them neatly on the polished wood table, next to the designer placemats. Ethan stared at the papers. What is this? He asked, his voice already tight. I have a question. Ethan, I said. My own voice was surprisingly calm. It sounded like someone else's. I just want to know when you planned on telling me. When were you going to tell me that you drained $80,000 from my savings and that you used my house to pay off the debts for your failing business? He tried to laugh. It was a short, strangled, ugly sound. Mum, you don't know what you're talking about. That's just asset management. You don't understand complex finance. I understand theft, I said. His anger flashed, hot and fast. You don't understand anything, he snapped, leaning forward. You never managed a single bill. I am trying to build something enormous, for this whole family, for those kids upstairs, and you're getting in the way. I kept my hands folded in my lap. I am not in your way. Ethan. But I have spoken to a lawyer. I've met with the Hawthorne Center for Elder Justice. We are preparing to file a civil suit. He went pale. But I wasn't done. And I have to assume, I continued, that the Ethics and Compliance Department at North Star Equities Advisory would be very interested to know how one of their top financial consultants handles his own mother's estate. That was the word. North Star. His job. His reputation. His mask of the successful son evaporated. The face underneath was raw, and it was furious. "You wouldn't," he hissed. "You would not dare." He stood up, knocking his chair back. "You threaten my job, my family." He was yelling now, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. I had no choice. Do you understand me? No choice. I had to use your information for a few credit cards. So what I had to sign for you on some digital forms, I had to take that mortgage. It was the only way to save the company. He was pacing, gesturing wildly, admitting to everything. He was so consumed by his own rage that he didn't see Brooke. She was standing in the doorway that led to the kitchen, her hands over her mouth, listening to every single word. "You are going to ruin us," Ethan shouted, his face red. "You are going to destroy your grandchildren's future, all for a stupid old house." "Ethan." Brooke's voice was quiet, but it cut through his rage like a knife. He stopped, frozen. "Lower your voice," she said. She stepped fully into the dining room. Her eyes were not on her husband. They were on me. She looked at the papers on the table, then at my hands, which I realized were trembling. Her gaze was filled with a dawning, horrified comprehension. That night, long after I had returned to my own quiet, empty house, my phone buzz, a text message from a number I didn't recognize. It was an audio file. I pressed play. I heard the muffled sound of the dining room, and then Ethan's voice, clear and enraged. It was from after I had left. "She's going to pay for this," he was saying. "I used the power of attorney. She signed it. She doesn't get to decide what's best. I do." A second text came through from Brooke. Just one line. "I didn't know he had gone this far. I'm sorry." I sat in the dark. A crack had just appeared in the perfect, polished facade of my son's life. And I knew, for the first time, that I was not the only one who could see the truth. I forwarded the audio file to Simone immediately. I heard her sharp intake of breath when I called her an hour later. "This is it, Maggie," she said, and I could hear the rare smile in her voice. "This is gold. Ohio is a one-party consent state. That means as long as one person in the conversation knew it was being recorded in this case, Brooke, it is perfectly admissible as evidence." "So what now?" I asked. "Now, we move," she said. 2 days later, we officially filed the petition in the Hawthorne County Civil Court. The words on the paper were stark elder financial abuse, fraudulent conveyance, constructive fraud, and undue influence. It felt like declaring war on my own blood. We asked the judge for an immediate temporary injunction to stop any sale, transfer, or new mortgage on the house. That same afternoon, Simone sat with me in her office. "There's one more front we need to open," she said. "North Star Equities Advisory." I flinched. His job, she said, is built on an image of trust and fiduciary duty. He has violated that in the most profound way possible. They have a right to know who is managing their client's money. She had me draft a simple, factual letter. We didn't send the audio file, not yet. We sent the bank statements showing the drained $80,000 account. We sent the county records showing the new mortgage he took out on my house. We sent a copy of the civil complaint we had just filed. We sent it not as an anonymous complaint, but as a formal report from me, Margaret Doyle, with a request for confidentiality during their investigation. It did not take long. Within 1 week, the calls started. Not from lawyers, from Ethan. My phone lit up, day and night. I listened to Simone. I let every single call go to voicemail. I did not pick up. I did not reply. The messages were a terrifying spiral. The first one was sarcastic. "Wow, Mom, you really did it? You really called my job? Are you proud of yourself?" The second one, a few hours later, was pleading, "Mom, you don't understand. They're suspending me. Me. They're putting my accounts under review. You have to call them back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you were confused." By the third day, the voicemails were just raw, spitting rage. "You're going to regret this. You old fool. You have no idea what you just did. You just pulled the pin on a grenade. I'm taking you down with me. You will end up with nothing." I saved every single message. I wrote down the date and time of each call in a spiral notebook, just as Simone instructed. "This is evidence," she said, "of his ongoing harassment and attempts to manipulate and intimidate you. News, even bad news, travels fast in a town like Hawthorne Ridge. I was in my front yard pulling weeds when Judy Klein, my neighbour for 20 years, came over carrying a pitcher of iced tea. "I'm not here to gossip," she said, setting the pitcher down. "I'm here to say that I saw him. The day you came home from the hospital last year, I saw him walk you in, and he was carrying a briefcase stuffed with papers. You looked like you were about to collapse. If you need someone to tell the judge what you looked like that day, I will." When I told Simone, her eyes lit up. "Witnesses," she said. "That's what we need." She suggested we also contact the hospital to see if the discharge nurse, the one who wheeled me out, would be willing to give a statement. I felt a wave of shame, remembering how weak I had been. But I pushed it down. "Yes," I said. "This isn't about my pride. It's about the truth." Ethan made his next move, but it was petty. My internet suddenly went dark. I called the company, and they informed me the account had been cancelled by the primary account holder. Ethan, he had also, I discovered, stopped the automatic payments for the gas and electric, which he had so helpfully managed for me. He thought he was cutting me off from the world. He was wrong. Caleb, my 17-year-old neighbour, set up a new internet account in my name within an hour. My friends from church organised a schedule without even asking. One to take me to the grocery store, another to come sit with me in the evenings, just to make sure I was all right. The support from my community, the quiet, steady strength of my friends. It settled in my bones. It made me realize this fight wasn't just for me. It was for them, too. For every person who believed in right and wrong. As the court date for the injunction hearing approached, Simone sent me a draft of our full strategy. It was more than I expected. "We are not just asking for the house back, Maggie," she explained. "We are asking for compensatory damages for the insurance money he stole. We are asking for punitive damages for his behaviour. We are asking that he pay every cent of your legal fees. And," she paused, "we are asking the court to strip him of the durable power of attorney permanently and to bar him from ever acting as your financial agent again." It was a total, complete removal. A scalpel, not a hammer. He wanted control more than anything. This plan was designed to take it away from him, absolutely and forever. The preliminary hearing wasn't held in a grand courtroom. It was in a small, sterile room on the third floor, lit by flickering fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. It was cold. Ethan was there, sitting beside a sharp-looking lawyer in an expensive suit. My son looked impeccable, his face a perfect mask of concerned, responsible adulthood. He was playing the part of the good son, forced to make a hard decision for his confused mother. His lawyer was smooth. He painted a picture for the judge, his voice dripping with false sympathy. He claimed that I had enthusiastically agreed to the asset transfer. He suggested that, due to my age, my memory was understandably unreliable. He even presented records showing that the LLC, meaning Ethan, had paid the last few property tax bills and a landscaping invoice, as if that small sum bought him the right to the entire house. "Your Honor," he said, "my client has been dutifully managing his mother's affairs, just as she wished. This entire situation is a tragic misunderstanding, perhaps fueled by loneliness or confusion." Then it was my turn. His lawyer cross-examined me. He asked me to recall specific dates from the week of my surgery. He asked if I truly understood the definition of a limited liability company. He suggested that my subjective feeling of being rushed was not the same as a legal fact. I felt small and stupid, and for a horrible few minutes, I felt like the one on trial. Just as the judge was starting to look impatient, Simone stood up. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's memory of her state of mind is clear, but we also have objective evidence of Mr. Doyle's intent." She addressed the judge, who gave her a short nod. We had already submitted the audio file. Permission to play a short, 30-second segment of the recording from the family dinner on October 3rd. The judge sighed, but nodded. "Proceed." Simone pressed a button on her laptop. The tinny sound of an audio recording filled the silent, cold room. First, Brooke's muffled voice, then Ethan's, loud and sharp. "Mom, you don't need to know the details. I used the house. I used it to save the company." "All right. It's not the first time you've had to help me." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan's face was bright red. His lawyer immediately jumped up. "Your Honor, that is inadmissible." It was a private conversation, and those are clearly just words spoken in anger. "Anger, perhaps," Simone countered, standing, "but also an admission. And here," she slid the papers across the table, "are the bank statements showing the $80,000 insurance fund he emptied, and the county records for the loan he took out on this house before he transferred it, and the 3 other civil judgments against him for debt. This was not helping his mother. This was a desperate man liquidating his only remaining asset, her." The judge looked at the papers, his brow furrowed. He looked at the original POL. He looked at the notarized transfer deed. He was visibly conflicted. "Ms. Alvarez," he said, rubbing his temples, "I see a lot of family animosity. But what I also see is a validly executed durable power of attorney and a transfer document that appears to be, on its face, perfectly legal and properly filed. Mrs. Doyle may have regretted signing it, but she did sign it." My heart sank. He was going to rule against us. He was going to say the law was the law. "Your Honor," a voice called from the back of the small courtroom. We all turned. A man I hadn't seen in years was standing at the bar, holding a hat in his hands. It was Sam Reynolds. He was 72, retired, and had been Patrick's closest friend from the old auto plant. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge said, clearly recognizing him. What is this? You are not on the witness list. I am now, Sam said, walking forward, his old work boots squeaking on the tile. I apologize to the court. I only heard about this hearing this morning. But I have something that belongs to Maggie. Something that belongs in this record. He was holding a thick, sealed, cream-colored envelope. What is that? Ethan's lawyer snapped. It's a copy of a modified will, Sam said, handing it to the bailiff. Patrick Doyle asked me to hold this for him 3 years ago. He said it was just in case. It's got his signature. And the date. All notarized. The judge took the envelope, examined the seal, and opened it. He read the contents silently. Maggie had never seen this. The judge looked up, his eyes sharp. This document, signed by Patrick Doyle, states, and I quote, regardless of any other legal paperwork or estate structures, it is my non-negotiable wish that my wife, Margaret Doyle, be granted the right to live in our home at 418 Maplecrest Drive for the rest of her natural life, should she so choose. The judge looked at Sam. Why has Mrs. Doyle never seen this? Sam Reynolds looked directly at Ethan. Because I mailed the other copy to Maggie, right after Patrick passed. And this young man, he pointed a gnarled finger at my son. He called me. He told me he received it from the mailbox, and that he would give it to his mother at the right time. That it was better to let her grieve than to bother her with paperwork. He intercepted it. The entire temperature of the room changed. This was no longer about a clean transfer. This was about concealment. This was about manipulation. The judge's gaze was like ice. Given the new evidence suggesting possible concealment of a testamentary document and clear intent to subvert the decedent's wishes, he announced, his voice booming in the small space. I am granting the temporary injunction in full. All actions regarding the sale, transfer, or encumbrance of the property at 418 Maplecrest are hereby frozen. We will see you all at a full trial. The injunction didn't silence Ethan. It made him desperate. The voicemails stopped, but the emails started. They flooded my inbox, a chaotic torrent of manipulation. One, sent at 3 a.m., would be full of self-pity. Mum, I am so sorry. I know I messed up. I just wanted to build something. Please, let's fix this. Just us. Then, an hour later, another would arrive, dripping with venom. You are going to destroy this family. You are going to ruin your own grandchildren just to keep a mouldy old house. You're a selfish old woman, and you will die alone in that house. I forwarded every single one to Simone. She simply replied, Keep them coming. He is building our case for us. Simone, however, was moving far beyond the civil case. She took the entire file the power of attorney signed when I was on painkillers. Sam Reynolds's testimony about the intercepted will, Brooks' audio recording, the bank statements, the loan documents, and Ethan's threatening emails, and she walked it over to the county prosecutor's office. We've formally requested they open a criminal investigation, she told me over the phone. This has graduated from a family dispute to felony elder financial abuse. The next piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected place. Caleb, my young neighbour, was over helping me reset my Wi-Fi router after Ethan's cancellation games. He noticed the smart doorbell camera by my front door. You ever look at the cloud storage for this thing? Mrs. Doyle? He asked. I never even knew it had storage, I admitted. He pulled out his phone, tapped in my Wi-Fi password, and started scrolling back and back, all the way back, nearly 1 year. "Here it is," he said. "The day you came home from the hospital." He pressed play. I watched myself, a stranger in my own life. I saw Ethan push my wheelchair up the ramp. I saw myself, pale, grey, and hunched over, my body weak. And I saw the footage from the front door as he wheeled me inside. He didn't even let me get to my chair. The video showed him placing that thick stack of papers on the hallway table. I saw him put a pen in my hand and just point. "Sign here, Mom, and here, and here." My voice on the video was a weak, thin rasp. "What is all this? Honey." And his voice, so smooth, so reassuring. "It's nothing, Mom. Just good stuff. Just getting your paperwork in order so you don't have to worry." Simone nearly cried with joy when I showed her the file. "This is the ball game, Maggie. This proves everything. This proves undue influence and a vulnerable state better than any testimony." It got better. The hospital discharge nurse, subpoenaed for a statement, confirmed it. "Oh, I remember that son." Her affidavit read, "He was very pushy. He actually had Mrs. Doyle signing a few pages in the hospital bed before we could even get her into the wheelchair. I told him it was against policy, but he said it was urgent. We were building an ironclad case. I even gave Simone permission to speak, off the record for now, to a young investigative reporter at the Hawthorne Gazette. I didn't want a spectacle, but Simone was firm. The community needs to know how this happens. The reporter, she told me, had already started digging into Ethan's other investors. Then, Simone proposed the final move, the checkmate. "Ethan's lawyer is terrified," she explained. "They've requested a formal private mediation. They think they can scare you into a settlement." "I'm not settling," I said. "I know." Simone smiled. "We're going to use it as a deposition. Everything said in that room, in front of a neutral mediator, is on the record. He thinks he can walk in and control the narrative. We're going to let him hang himself with his own ego." The mediation was held in a bland conference room. Ethan showed up 20 minutes late, looking terrible. He was pale, unshaven, and his expensive suit was rumpled. He was clearly feeling the pressure from the North Star investigation. "Mum, this is insane," he started, ignoring Simone and his own lawyer. "You have to call off this investigation. You have to drop this suit. You don't know what they're doing to me. They've frozen my accounts." "That is not what we are here to discuss," the mediator said, a sharp woman in her 60s. But Simone held up a hand, her voice a mask of sympathy. "Ethan, just help us understand. What were these important contracts you mentioned in your emails, the ones that were so urgent?" Ethan fell right into it. He was desperate to justify himself. "It was a tech deal, Brightstone. It was going to set this family up for life," he complained, looking at the mediator. "All I did was optimize my mother's assets. I moved the house into the LLC to protect it from taxes. It was a smart play. And yes, I used it as collateral. It's what you do with assets. You leverage them. She just doesn't understand." The mediator just kept typing. Simone tilted her head. "So you decided, on your own, to leverage her only home and the $80,000 in her savings." "She would have said yes if she understood," he snapped. "I was acting in her best interest." It was a full confession, wrapped in a bow of arrogance. That night, I didn't walk the floors. I sat in Patrick's chair, on the coffee table. I laid out the piles of evidence, the bank statements, the threatening emails, the audio file from Brooke, the still images from Caleb's video, the nurse's affidavit, the transcript from the mediator, documenting his own confession. For the first time in my life, I held all the cards. I wasn't a weak old woman. I wasn't a victim. I was the person who had just loaded every single bullet. The feeling wasn't rage, and it wasn't grief. It was a cold, quiet, absolute certainty. This was not about revenge. This was about a calculated, righteous correction. And I was going to see it through. About a week before the final trial, the mail brought a different kind of weapon. It wasn't a legal threat. It was a single envelope, addressed in the clumsy, earnest cursive of my 11-year-old grandson, Thomas. I opened it with a knot in my stomach. It was written on lined school paper. "Dear Grandma," it read. "Dad says you are very mad at him. He said you are trying to take the house away, even though he's using it to help save our family. I don't understand. Why do grown-ups have to fight about a place that is just bricks and wood? I miss you. Love. Thomas." The pain was sharp, but this time it was mixed with a cold fury. This was Ethan's real talent. He was using his son as an emotional bullet, aiming right for my heart. He was painting me as the villain, the cold-hearted old woman destroying his family. It was the same pattern of manipulation he had used on me for my entire adult life, just aimed at a child. As if to confirm it, Brooke appeared at my door 2 days later. A cold, miserable rain was lashing the windows. She didn't call first. She just stood on the porch, soaking wet, her eyes red and hollow. "Maggie," she said, her voice a raw whisper. I have to tell you something else." I stepped back and let her into the entryway. She didn't move toward the kitchen, just stood dripping on the mat. "It's not just your money," she said, the words tumbling out. "It's the kids. He took their college funds, a huge part of it." I gripped the doorway. "He told me it was a short-term investment for Brightstone, that he was just reallocating it to get a better return." She choked out, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "But it's gone. Maggie. He used it to pay off those angry investors. He sacrificed his own children's future to save his reputation. I'm leaving him. I'm getting an apartment. And if you need me to, I will get on the stand and I will tell them. I will tell them everything." After she left, the house felt too quiet. I was truly, finally, trapped. I had all the evidence I needed to win, but at what cost, if I went forward? I wouldn't just win my house back. I would be the key witness in the criminal case. My son would lose his job. He would likely face prison time. His family, my family, would be shattered. My grandchildren, already victims, would lose their father and their financial future. But what was the alternative? If I backed down now, if I let him win, I would be setting a different kind of precedent. I would be teaching him that his actions had no consequences. I would be proving that he could steal from his mother, his wife, and even his own children, and get away with it. He would just move on, find someone else to drain dry. I was in the study, late at night, unable to sleep. I opened Patrick's old desk, just running my hands over the familiar grain of the wood. My fingers brushed against one of his old pocket notebooks. I flipped through the pages of old measurements, phone numbers, and job notes, and on the last page, in his strong, clear pencil script. I found a sentence I hadn't read in 20 years. Being a parent doesn't mean forgiving everything, he had written. Sometimes, loving your kid means letting them be responsible for their own life. I brought the notebook to my meeting with Simone the next morning. I'm scared, I admitted to her, my voice quiet. I'm terrified that I am about to become the woman who sent her own son to prison. Simone didn't try to comfort me. She didn't give me a speech. She just looked at me with her steady, dark eyes. Maggie, she asked, if Patrick were alive, would he accept his son stealing this house and using his name to defraud other people? I was silent for a very long time. The answer was a resounding, absolute no. My goal isn't to put him in prison, I finally said, the fog in my head clearing. My goal is to protect my property. My goal is to reclaim my independence. My goal is to send a clear message that what he did has consequences. I took a deep breath. The rest is between him and the court. He chose this path. Good, Simone said, a grim look on her face. Because Brooke's lawyer has already been in touch with the DA, she is officially agreeing to testify as a witness for the prosecution in the criminal case. In exchange, they are not pursuing any charges against her for what she knew. A strange new alliance. 3 women, a mother, a wife, and a lawyer standing together, each of us paying our own emotional price for the truth. That evening, I sat down at my desk. I took out my good, cream-coloured stationery. I wrote a letter back to Thomas. I didn't talk about the lawsuit. I didn't mention the college fund. I didn't say one single bad word about his father. I told him he was right, that a house can be just bricks and wood. But I told him that, for me, this house was the proof of 32 years of love and hard work with his grandfather. That it was the walls that held the memory of his father's childhood. I wrote that sometimes. Grown-ups have to fight very hard, not to protect the bricks, but to protect the things that are invisible, like memory, and love, and a lifetime of work. The final trial was held in the main county courthouse. The room was large, with high ceilings and dark wood, and it was no longer private. The Hawthorne Gazette reporter was in the front row, taking notes. Several of my neighbours, including Judy Klein, sat in the pews behind me. And in the very back, sitting stone-faced, were 2 people in suits I didn't recognise. Simone had pointed them out. They were from the compliance department at North Star Equities Advisory. The air was thick and still. Simone was methodical. She was magnificent. She stood before the judge and, piece by piece, she built the case. She didn't raise her voice. She simply laid one fact on top of another, a timeline of precise, calculated cuts. She started with the power of attorney, signed while I was on medication, and backed it up with the nurse's sworn affidavit. She presented the intercepted will from Patrick and Sam Reynolds's testimony. She showed the bank statements for the $80,000 insurance fund, detailing every single reimbursement Ethan had paid to his own shell company. She put up the bank loan he had taken out on my house and the admissions from the mediation. She played the audio file from Brooke, where Ethan had confessed to managing my assets without my knowledge. She read aloud the threatening emails, one by one. When Brooke was called to the stand, the room was silent. She was calm, but her hands were closed so tightly her knuckles were white. She told the court about the constant fights over money. She repeated the phrases Ethan had used for years. "Mom can take it, she's fine." Or, "She has the house, she has the insurance." And then, her voice breaking but never faltering. She told the judge about the college funds. She admitted she had stayed silent for too long, terrified of what it would mean. Then, Simone projected the video from my doorbell camera onto the large screens in the courtroom. The entire room watched. They saw Ethan wheel me, frail and grey, into my own home. They saw him shove the thick stack of papers in front of me. They heard my weak, thin voice ask, "What is this?" "Honey." And they heard his smooth, dismissive reply, "Don't worry. Mom. It's something good, just sign it so I can handle things." The sound of a pen scratching on paper was the only thing you could hear. Ethan's lawyer tried, but there was nothing he could do. He tried to argue that LLCs were standard estate planning. He tried to say that I had merely forgotten my consent. The judge finally looked at Ethan directly. "Mr. Doyle," he asked, his voice sharp, "did you at any point explain to your mother that by signing these papers, you were taking out a new mortgage on her home and giving yourself the power to sell it?" Ethan stammered, "Your Honor, we have family trust. I was managing her affairs. She doesn't want to be bothered with details." "I'll take that as a no," the judge said. Before the judge recessed, he allowed the representative from North Star to make a brief statement for the record. The man stood, his voice void of emotion. "Your Honor, North Star Equities Advisory has suspended Mr. Doyle pending this investigation. We want to state for the record that if the civil court finds, or the criminal court convicts, Mr. Doyle of financial malfeasance or elder abuse, his contract will be terminated permanently." We waited for 2 hours. It was the longest 2 hours of my life. When the judge returned, he held the papers in his hand. "While this court notes that the signatures on the original documents are valid," he began, "this court finds that they were obtained under conditions of clear undue influence, egregious lack of transparency, and profound fiduciary abuse." I grabbed Simone's hand. "It is the judgment of this court," he said, his voice ringing, "that the transfer of the property at 418 Maple Crest Drive to the entity Doyle Legacy Holdings LLC is hereby declared null and void. The title is restored, effective immediately, to Margaret Doyle." He wasn't done. Furthermore, this court imposes a life estate on the property. Mrs. Doyle will have the right to live in her home until her death or until she chooses to leave. No person may sell, mortgage, or otherwise encumber this property without her express, separate, written signature. The existing power of attorney is permanently revoked. He looked at Ethan, his face like stone. "And this court finds the evidence presented today to be deeply disturbing. I am referring the entire file of this case to the county prosecutor's office for immediate review for criminal charges, including, but not limited to, elder financial abuse and potential bank fraud." We walked out into the bright afternoon sun. Ethan was waiting on the steps, his face pale and twisted with a rage that looked like sickness. His lawyer was trying to pull him away, but he ripped his arm free. He lunged toward me, stopping just short. "You destroyed me," he shrieked, his voice cracking, spittle flying from his lips. "You ruined your own son." For a house. I stood tall. I looked him dead in the eye, not his mother, but his equal. "You did this to yourself." "Ethan," I said, my voice cold and clear, "I just stopped you, just in time, before you pulled me down with you." It was the last word I ever said to him. My revenge was not seeing him in court, though the criminal trial is pending. My revenge is this. It's a summer evening. I am on my porch, in my house. The roses that Patrick planted are in full, glorious bloom. I'm signing papers with Simone, but these are different. One is a new, durable power of attorney, naming Brooke, who is getting her life back, with her kids and a non-profit trust as my agents. The other is my new will. I spend my Tuesday afternoons at the Hawthorne Centre for Elder Justice. I'm a volunteer now. I sit with other people, other mothers and fathers, who come in confused and scared. I listen to their stories, and then I tell them mine. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. I'd love to know where you're all tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you'd like to hear more, please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, give this video a like, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.